So I recently watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series that came out on Disney Plus, and it was pretty good. It was pretty decent. I thought as the first season, as basically an introductory season for Obi-Wan Kenobi, it did a decent enough job. And if you're a Star Wars fan like me and you like the Star Wars universe, you will enjoy this season and I will recommend it. Now, with that said, going forward, I will be spoiling much of the season, and we'll go into details about the characters, the plot, the production of the show, how it's written, and so on and so forth. So if you like Star Wars, go ahead and watch it. It's pretty good. It's pretty decent, but from here on out, I'm going to be giving spoilers. So you have been warned, and please leave a comment in the comment section down below of your guys' thoughts on the show. So the story begins about 10-15 years after the events of Revenge of the Sith. We're following Obi-Wan Kenobi as he's on Tatooine looking after Luke Skywalker from a distance, as his family, his adoptive family, Lars and someone else I forgot, kind of don't want Obi-Wan Kenobi around, but he's still sticking around as he feels an obligation to kind of look after him. Obi-Wan Kenobi is kind of living this sort of horrible life as he's kind of working at this job, and he's working kind of bad conditions, and he also lives in sort of a cave in this kind of squalid conditions. And we see Kenobi in this sort of weakened state as he's gotten older, and he's kind of lost his skills. His sort of connection to the Force has been diminished because as he's gotten older and he's become weaker. And also he has for years been avoiding the threat of the Empire, as after the events of the Revenge of the Sith, the Empire has been systematically hunting down the Jedi or anybody who's Force sensitive and exterminating them. And the kind of lead exterminators are these people called the Inquisitors. And one of the Inquisitors, played by Moses Ingram, is called Reva, and she is dead set, absolutely obsessed with finding Kenobi. Now, Kenobi, to her peers, has been kind of a hard Jedi to find, and many people feel like it's almost impossible to find him or that he's already dead. But she feels that she's capable of actually hunting him down and really finding him out, and she is determined and really obsessed with getting him. So she's hunting him down, and meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi is just trying to do as much as possible avoiding the Empire and not trying to be murdered by them or exterminated. And while this is happening, the 10-year-old Leia on the planet of Alderaan is being prepared to be a princess, and she is kidnapped by thugs, and the adoptive family, I forgot his name, the Imperial Senator, asks Obi-Wan Kenobi to go and rescue her and find her, as he feels he's the most trusted guy, he's the best and the most capable of going ahead and rescuing her and bringing her to safety. Well, we learn that Reva had Leia kidnapped as bait for drawing in Kenobi, as she feels that he will come and try to rescue her, and she can then pull him into her trap. Later on, we learn that Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't even know that Anakin Skywalker is still alive. He learns that he has become Darth Vader. We see them encounter each other, as Darth Vader also has been very much dead set and obsessed with hunting down Kenobi and basically trying to torture and finally kill him. And they have a huge lightsaber duel, which was a lot more impressive than the lightsaber duel that's at the end of the Revenge of the Sith. And he's trying to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Reva's trying to kill and hunt down Obi-Wan Kenobi, while Kenobi is trying to avoid being exterminated and trying to rescue Princess Leia and bring her back to Alderaan. So that's the standard plot. Ewan McGregor does a pretty decent enough job as he comes back. I think he's the best choice as Obi-Wan Kenobi, as he was good in the prequels and he's good here. There are times in the show where I feel like he's phoning it in, and sometimes his performance is lacking. That's my observation. But overall, he does a pretty decent enough job, and I can't really say much more. I'm glad to see him back, and I'm glad that there's a show dedicated to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Christian Haydenson also returns as Darth Vader, as he's actually wearing the suit throughout the show. And I can't really say much about Christian Hayden's performance because he's mostly in the Darth Vader suit, but what I can say is it's awesome seeing Darth Vader come back, and as you see how awesome and how evil and absolutely powerful he is, how strong he is, how no one can really get in his way, no one can kind of fight him and survive. He is just an unstoppable force, and it's so cool just seeing him come back. Moses Ingram as Reva, as the Inquisitor, she gave a pretty decent performance. I think I would like to see more of her, but I don't see her performance as exceptional. I think she did a decent enough job. And that's what I can kind of say about the performances overall in this show. Ewan McGregor is fine. Moses Ingram's performance is fine, and all the other side characters and actors, they're fine. They're doing a decent enough job for this season. And I think that's okay. There's not a problem there with it. My issue that I have with this show is the fact that they're focused on basically rescuing Princess Leia. And this is sort of a rehash of episode 4. And I'm not trying to be too harsh to the child actor who's playing 10-year-old Princess Leia, but I feel like this element of the show is the weakest aspect, as I kind of wasn't really invested in trying to see Obi-Wan Kenobi rescue her. I'm more invested in Obi-Wan Kenobi himself going on other adventures. I would like to see, as I'm hearing that there's going to be a season 2, I would like to see Obi-Wan Kenobi confront unique threats and enemies, like seeing Darth Maul come back. I would love to see Obi-Wan Kenobi duel Darth Maul like he had to duel Darth Vader. That would be a lot cooler than this first season. I understand this is basically an introductory season. This is basically to see if there's going to be positive responses to an Obi-Wan Kenobi show. But again, I wish they didn't have basically the season dedicated to a rescue plot of Princess Leia, as it's not really that interesting. We've seen this before. It's fine enough as it is, and it's somewhat engaging, but I want to see more adventures of Obi-Wan doing other things on his own, fighting interesting enemies or having to deal with interesting threats, instead of just doing another rescue mission. And that's really the main problem that I have with the show, and that's about it. Everything else is pretty good, even though that the budget of the show is less obviously than the movies, the sequels. The show looks great, and like I said, the duels, the fight scenes, all the action scenes that are in this show are pretty good. I really like them. I don't think there was sort of a lacking of production value when it came to the action scenes, and it's not distracting to see bad CGI in the show either. It all works very well. I think the director, Deborah Chow, who directs most of the episodes here in season 1, does a pretty decent enough job directing. I know that Jon Favreau, who directed much of The Mandalorian, is a much better director, but Deborah Chow shows that she's competent enough and she can tell very interesting Star Wars stories. And I don't really have any issues with her either. That's really how I can sum up Obi-Wan Kenobi's show, is that it does what it does. It's pretty okay as an introductory season, because what we're seeing is basically Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilms and Disney basically milking the Star Wars universe as it is a cash cow for them, and as they transition away from making the Star Wars movies into making these sort of Star Wars universe shows and expanding upon the universe and telling these stories, from The Mandalorian to the Book of Boba Fett to now with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love The Mandalorian. I like the fact that that show was focusing on the Mandalorian race, and it's not focusing on the Jedi. It is focusing on one character who's a bounty hunter who has this honor code, who's part of this race of warriors. And I love that aspect of the show, that it's another thing that's part of the Star Wars universe, and they can tell other stories other than just the Jedi. And that's the benefit of really the streaming platform that Disney Plus is. What we're seeing right now is basically movie theaters are slowly dying out, and we're seeing streaming really taking over. I remember watching an interview with David Cronenberg where he was talking about streaming as the future, and the fact that streaming really has kind of starting to put the nails in the coffin for movie theaters. It's not going to die out altogether, but movie theaters are really diminishing in their kind of value towards the public and towards culture. But overall, I would say that seeing Disney Plus with many sort of shows and seasons of varying stories is a good thing. And over time, like 10 to 15 years, as they get a hold of the streaming platform, and they start to become accustomed to it. They bring better writers, better directors, and they tell more interesting stories. What we're going to see is an increase in quality. I'm sort of an optimist in that way, seeing that there will be a general improvement in the shows as it goes on. With the introductory season of Obi-Wan Kenobi, what we could see is basically this season's going to do all right. I watched the first 5 episodes, and what I've seen is okay so far. But I feel that with season 2, they should up the ante or improve upon their storytelling. It shouldn't be another rescue mission. It should be more focused on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because, again, they have this universe that they can play with and they can use, and they can tell so many stories. And with Obi-Wan Kenobi, they should focus on him and his struggles, and not really on some sort of plot of rescuing a princess. I would like to see Darth Maul come back. I hope they bring that in season 2. It would be fun and interesting to see. But hey, that could happen. That couldn't happen. They could probably drop the ball on that opportunity, but who knows? Overall, I would say that Obi-Wan Kenobi is a pretty good, the first season is pretty good. I think it's a lot better than the Book of Boba Fett. The issue that I had with the Book of Boba Fett is that I'm glad that they did focus on that character a little bit, but there were a lot of ridiculous and goofy elements that were inserted in that show that were completely unnecessary, and there were issues that I have with the sort of pacing of the show and the fact that they didn't focus on him too much. So there were a lot of kind of inconsistencies in this sort of, I guess, the production of that show, and really the story and sort of how it was all over the place. And the Book of Boba Fett really has a lot of problems, but I liked it overall, and that's the good thing about the Star Wars universe, because even though it might be mediocre or subpar, I still love the Star Wars universe enough to kind of watch and be invested in the show. So it would be the Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, and The Mandalorian, which I think is just an amazing show. I think I'm really excited just to see season 3 of The Mandalorian. I know it's going to be an amazing season, but I want to see more stories like The Mandalorian, and I know that Disney Plus has this opportunity. Now, they could fail and they could start producing more crap in the future, and this will happen. They will produce below mediocre shows that will just turn the Star Wars fan base off and not really continue having their fans come back to watch more of their content. But let's see what happens. Let's see if Obi-Wan Kenobi will improve in its quality. We don't know. So the thing is that I would recommend watching Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ewan McGregor is pretty great. Moses Ingram as Reva is pretty great. Overall, it's a pretty standard Star Wars show, and I can't say anything much else about it. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And like always, have a wonderful day.